At 0 to 13 hours local time, for radar returns rise off the Mediterranean coastline west of Tel Aviv. They climb without afterburner, maintaining a low observable profile, holding 28,000 feet before banking east. Their transponders remain dark. The aircraft are F-35I Adir fighters, operating in a mission control mode. 140 nautical miles ahead lies the first invisible boundary, long-range surveillance coverage tied to Iran's integrated air defense network. Inside a hardened operations center beneath Tehran, operators monitor a layered system built around Russian-supplied S-400 batteries and domestically upgraded radar arrays. The S-400's 91N6E Big Bird acquisition radar can detect large targets beyond 300 kilometers, but against low observable aircraft, its effective detection range compresses dramatically, potentially below 50 kilometers depending on aspect and altitude. Iranian commanders know this. They do not rely on a single radar. They rely on geometry. The F-35 formation splits at waypoint delta. Two aircraft descend to 22,000 feet to reduce radar horizon exposure. The other pair climbs slightly to extend sensor reach. Therein, APG-81 AESA radars remain mostly passive, drawing data from off-board sources. Hundreds of kilometers behind them, an Israeli Air Force G550 conformal airborne early warning platform orbits over the Negev, stitching together a composite air picture without pushing forward into threat envelopes. The mission depends on information dominance before kinetic action. The first dilemma emerges for 180 kilometers from the target set. Iran's western air defense belt includes overlapping engagement zones, from S-300 PMU-2 and S-400 systems positioned to protect key nuclear facilities, including Natanz nuclear facility and Fordo fuel enrichment plant. To strike effectively, Israeli aircraft must either degrade the outer ring or bypass it through altitude and timing. Suppressing the defenses first risks alerting the entire network. Penetrating directly risks entering overlapping missile envelopes. At 0 to 1 hours, 1,000 to 100 kilometers away in the northern Indian Ocean, an Israeli Dolphin-class submarine releases a salvo of conventionally armed cruise missiles, traveling at approximately 0.8 Mach and sea-skimming at 30 meters. The missiles are programmed toward Iranian coastal radar installations near Bandar Abbas. Their arrival time is calculated to coincide within a 4-minute window of the main air. Penetration. The objective is not mass destruction. It is sensor disruption. Iranian coastal radar operators detect low-altitude anomalies at 0 to 9 hours. Reaction time compresses. Engagement authorization travels up the chain of command. A short-range Tor M1 battery launches to interceptors. One cruise missile is destroyed. The second impacts a fixed radar site, temporarily degrading coverage across a 60-degree sector. It is not a catastrophic loss, but it forces a shift in radar tasking priorities. The integrated network narrows its focus southward. That shift creates a seam. At 0 to 2 hours, the forward F-35 pair reduce speed to 420 knots and descend to 18,000 feet, aligning their approach with mountainous terrain west of Isfahan. Terrain masking is partial at that altitude, but combined with reduced radar coverage from the coastal strike, it complicates detection timelines. Each aircraft carries to GBU-57 massive ordnance penetrators internally modified for compatibility. Weapons weighing approximately 13,600 kilograms, designed to penetrate reinforced concrete before detonation. The targets are buried. Precision is mandatory. Inside Iran's Air Defense Command Post, a senior officer faces his own dilemma. Passive sensors indicate possible stealth activity fluctuations to feint for a confirmed track. If he activates additional fire control radars to refine the picture, he risks revealing their exact positions to anti-radiation targeting. If he waits for confirmation, reaction time may fall below engagement thresholds. He orders a limited sector scan. The scan provides a fragmented return at 47 kilometers. Probability of track validity, 62%. Engagement envelope with for 8 and 6 DM interceptors requires 38 kilometers for a high probability kill. The closing geometry leaves less than 3 minutes. At to 56 hours, Israeli electronic warfare support aircraft initiates standoff jamming outside Iranian airspace. This is surgical interference, not broad-spectrum noise designed to inflate uncertainty. The Iranian radar picture blooms with false amplitude fluctuations. The Iranian commander must choose: fire on a low-confidence track, or hold fire and risk a strike on a strategic facility. He authorizes one launch. The interceptor climbs to 90,000 feet before diving toward the projected intercept point at nearly Mach 6. The targeted F-35 detects the launch via missile approach warning systems and executes a 4.5G evasive turn. It deploys towed decoys. Radar cross-section changes momentarily. The missile passes within lethal range but fails to achieve lock refinement. it detonates. Prematurely, the failed intercept exposes the firing battery's location. Within seconds, one of the trailing F-35s designates the radar source and releases a precision glide munition. The weapon impacts the fire control radar array, rendering the battery combat ineffective. The engagement corridor widens by 30 kilometers. Yet, this success creates vulnerability elsewhere. With Western batteries degraded, Iranian command reallocates coverage eastward, pulling a mobile S-300 unit closer to Fordo fuel enrichment plant. Fordo is buried beneath nearly 80 meters of rock. It is not vulnerable to superficial strike. Only deep penetration munitions delivered precisely can disrupt centrifuge halls. At 3:07 hours, the first Israeli strike package reaches release parameters for Natanz nuclear facility. Bomb. Release altitude 30,000 feet. Airspeed for 180 knots. The GBU-57 separates cleanly, guided by GPS with terminal inertial correction. Time to impact, 47 seconds. Iranian air defense attempts a last-moment intercept with short-range systems. Engagement. Probability is limited against a near-vertical terminal descent. The penetrator strikes reinforced. Roofing. Burrows through layered concrete and detonates milliseconds after entry into a hardened chamber. Seismic sensors register the shockwave across central Iran. Simultaneously, a second wave unfolds that Iranian commanders did not initially detect. Ballistic missiles launched from Israeli territory. Minutes earlier arc above the atmosphere at speeds exceeding Mach 10, before descending toward power substations and command nodes supporting nuclear infrastructure. These are not aimed at centrifuge halls. They are aimed at electricity distribution and communications redundancy. The purpose becomes clear only gradually. The operation is not designed solely to crater enrichment facilities. It is designed to degrade the recovery timeline. At 3:15 hours, Iranian fighter aircraft F-1 for Tomcats and MiG-29 scramble from bases near Tabriz and Hamadan. But the Israeli strike aircraft are already aggressing along pre-calculated corridors, refueling tracks positioned over neutral airspace awaiting them. Distance to tanker rendezvous, 620 nautical miles. Fuel margins are narrow but sufficient. The mobile S-300 repositioned near Fordo achieves a clearer track on the withdrawing formation. This time to interceptors are launched in ripple fire. Israeli electronic countermeasures intensify. One missile loses guidance. The second closes to within 20 meters before missing due to abrupt altitude change and decoy deployment. The F-35s exit the high-threat envelope. On the ground, damage assessments remain uncertain. Natanz's above-ground infrastructure is heavily damaged. Subterranean halls suffer partial structural collapse. Fordo's entrances are sealed by secondary strikes targeting access tunnels, rather than the deepest chambers. Electricity flow to centrifuge cascades is disrupted by ballistic impacts on substations. Near calm, yet the deeper layer of the operation continues. Cyber units, activated hours earlier, exploit the confusion within Iran's command network. Malware embedded months prior begins corrupting sensor logs and delaying maintenance diagnostics. Engineers attempting to restore centrifuge calibration encounter anomalous readings. Recovery slows from weeks to potentially months. The tactical picture stabilizes by 03 hours. Israeli aircraft clear Iranian airspace. Iranian air defenses remain partially operational but fragmented. Missile inventories are reduced in the western sector. Radar coverage gaps persist where fixed. Installations were destroyed. Strategically, the strike presents Iran with its own dilemma. Immediate retaliation risks triggering broader regional escalation. Potential involvement of external powers looms. Delayed asymmetric response preserves strategic ambiguity, but it concedes immediate deterrence perception internationally. Oil markets react within minutes of confirmation. Naval forces in the Persian Gulf increase. Readiness levels. U.S. and regional air defense units activate heightened alert statuses. They prepare to intercept potential retaliatory launches. The geometry of deterrence shifts. The larger strategy becomes evident in the aftermath analysis. Targeting centrifuges and enabling infrastructure, power grids, air defenses. Command nodes. Israel sought to extend the timeline for nuclear breakout capability. The strike is calibrated below the threshold of regime collapse, yet above symbolic messaging. It is operationally disruptive rather than annihilative. Iran retains capabilities. Underground facilities are not entirely destroyed. Missile forces remain intact, but the integrated air defense network has been mapped in combat conditions. Its response times measured, its vulnerabilities cataloged. That intelligence will shape future planning on both sides. In military terms, the operation demonstrates layered sequencing, sensor disruption, air defense suppression, precision penetration, infrastructure denial, and cyber exploitation, each phase timed within minutes of the other. Success depended not on a single weapon, but on synchronization across domains: sea, air, land, cyber, and space-based navigation. The final assessment is neither triumph nor catastrophe. It is recalibration. Iran's nuclear timeline extends. Israel's deterrent credibility is reinforced. But so is Iran's motivation to harden further and disperse assets deeper underground. Regional actors reassess their own missile defenses and alliance commitments at 0500 hours. As daylight begins to break over central Iran, emergency crews move through debris fields and Natanz. Air defense batteries reposition. Political leadership convenes crisis councils. The physical damage is measurable. The strategic damage is not yet fully visible. What began at 0013 hours as for silent radar returns over the Mediterranean was not an isolated raid. It was a coordinated, multi-domain attempt to reshape the operational balance before a threshold could be crossed. The strike was never only about destruction. It was about time, and the calculation had changed.